Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome on stage Cisco's Regional Head of Smart Cities in APJC, Zdravka Newman.
Hello, hello. Hello, Manila. You know, this has been so inspirational until now. It's actually my birthday, and all the kind, thank you, all the kind PODT people were feeling a little bit, I guess, worried that I'm here and not with my family today. But, you know, I wouldn't have been anywhere else. It has just been a great, great experience today. And I've been asked to talk a little bit about what we do in the Internet of Everything. Oh, my picture is there. So as I was coming in here from Hong Kong, I saw this. This is a window dressing for the ladies in the room of the flagship store of Chanel in Hong Kong airport. And I was thinking to myself, there is no better way of visualizing what Internet of Everything is doing to all of us. The disruption that is bringing in every single industry. Even a company like Chanel, which is about 100 years old, has to think about how connectivity and how internet is changing their business model. So, you know, Coco was one of the disruptors in her era. She was one of the first female designers, and she was one of the first to actually wear pants when all the women are still wearing skirts and dresses. And so, besides experience, what I wanted to talk today is, if you can take two things from my presentation, is disruption and execution. I think there's been said so much about Internet of Everything, and I was thinking what new I can bring today here. There are definitely a few aspects that we have to keep on considering. One is how we keep on connecting people. How are we connecting the things? And before we even connect them, what those things really are. We have to define them. And then, only then, we'll be able to harness the data that comes out of all these meaningful connections in order to optimize our processes, in order to transform our businesses. Who of you remember Palm? Don't be Palm. I don't know if you remember it. If you remember the smartphone industry, what happened to it, the disruption that the smartphones brought to the mobile phone market. I remember the first time I could read my email anywhere on the go, 10 years ago, right? Still working for Cisco back then, and I was thinking, this is amazing. Boy, the device was ugly, but it was amazing. Not many people raise their hands now knowing about Palm. Don't be Palm. Because if you're sitting and watching what the neighbor will do, you'll be late in the game. And so Internet of Things is everywhere. We don't know how to capture the value, and we don't know how to capture the possibilities that are out there. But we do know that there are 200,000 connections that are happening every hour. It's the million of video streams and apps that have been downloaded. And yet, Internet of Things and Internet of Everything, and I call it everything because I didn't want to miss the people term, and I will switch to Internet of Things a little bit later, but the Internet of Everything is in the early growth stage. What it really means is that we are still thinking and working on how to connect things, how to facilitate the communication between machines, between devices, between sensors that are coming. Only after that we'll be able to work on transformation and transform our processes. But the real value of Internet of Things comes when we look into business model transformation. Look what's happening to the, it's happening to all of us. It's happening to the taxi driver with Uber. It's happening to the hotel industry with Airbnb. It's happening to the utility companies with Tesla. Who would have thought Tesla are putting solar panels on top of their roofs, becoming probably a decentralized grid, and becoming the next competitor for the Meralcos of the world. And if we don't think about that, and we only think about the connections, we'll never get to the maturity. Oops, excuse me. Okay. And so the real value of Internet of Things will come, and Internet of Everything will come when we realize how to actually transform the business model, take the sensors and the connections and and provide new services and benefit and harness those new services. So a lot of you are working probably in IT, in the companies and the enterprises that you're representing, some of you in charge of it, and the pressure is tremendous. The pressure is from all the trends that are coming, all of us here today. Great IT companies coming with the different trends that are in the market, and not only trends, with actual solutions for it. You have to deal with video, you have to deal with cloud, you have to deal with Internet of Things, big data, analytics, Watson on one side, and on the other side, the business imperative. Your customers, is the lines of business most of the times, will come with their demands for fast change, for innovation, bringing your own device, making sure that you survive the competitive movement, right? You don't want to become the palm, as I mentioned earlier. And so we think that a lot of IT jobs will also change. Mike talked earlier about how the jobs generally are changing. I think in the IT departments also a lot of jobs might even disappear by 2025, which means that IT is really becoming that facilitator between what's in the market and what the business wants. I don't think I'm the expert on this one after I've listened to Mike, but the key attributes of an IoE, obviously, you need to know what your customer think about you. You need to know where your assets are at any time. How do they perform? So that you can predictively optimize the performance of your assets. And you have to be agile. Agile is a lot of things, but one of those is being competitive. So catching those market transitions every time that they come. Very populated space. I think maybe that's what it makes it so hard to really make progress in the IoE, because IoT to be specific as well, because we have cracked how to connect people in a way. The business models and the business cases are pretty clear, but there is too much complexity in the IoE market. You have companies that are constantly, I think there are three main investment areas that are happening in the IoE. Companies that are investing in technology incubations and creating new platforms. The consumer side is absolutely crowded in terms of electronics, web vendors, the home automation that is coming, and of course the industrial. However, we do see a lot of investment still keeping in those in the IoE market. Okay, let's zoom into the Internet of Things, because Internet of Things for me is really about connecting the sensors, the devices, the hardware that comes, that from dark assets you can make them live assets, right? You can make them light assets. So the global market is probably about 7 trillion. Asia is probably 1/3 of that. And the revenues that we are seeing there will be, and this is the data from my friends from IDC, I think I want to check with them if it's still actual. It's that the first most important wave is the hardware sales that will happen. Then is the services, and then the software will come, which is the platforms eventually that will offer the business model transformation. Now the challenges in the IoT space are numerous. One is, and I think that's the key one, is cracking the return on investment model, cracking the financial model. How tangible is the business case or the use case that you define? If it's manufacturing, utility, oil and gas, smart cities, which is close to my heart, how do you really make it tangible to make sense? Because you have to invest. This is not going to be good to have. The second biggest challenge is, do we have end-to-end capabilities? So my big finding is in the market is that we have a lot of point solutions, which have to actually become more fluid with each other. And the third biggest challenge, securities, I'll leave to the experts after me, but the third one on my slide is the lack of standards. I call it the war for the air, meaning that all of those sensors, they have to connect wirelessly somehow, right? We cannot pull cables to every single thing out there. And so it's too much energy and time also spent on what would be the standards in that connectivity layer, right? Which I think we might not actually solve. So we need to come up with some other ways of solving that. And I'll come back to that in a minute. Just wanted to highlight that in the Asian market, which is 1/3, about 2.6 trillion, the research again from IDC shows that The biggest portion is consumer, but it's really coming from wearables and the devices. The two major business cases or use cases are coming from manufacturing and from smart cities. Public sector generally, but smart cities more concretely. And so I would like to spend a little bit of time on smart cities, which actually I have a deep dive tomorrow as well, so whoever here is from government is welcome to come and join me for more in-depth discussion. I think the cities is probably the most complicated space because defining the use cases that really are Internet of Things in cities is endless. If you look at manufacturing, you probably are looking at 5 to 10 use cases. You have to connect the machines in your factory. You have to have predictive maintenance based on the data that comes. You have to see how quickly certain lines are performing compared to others. And so you have pretty quick list of use cases. If it's oil and gas or utilities, the same thing. I think cities, because it touches from people, the public spaces, to the physical infrastructure, is quite complex to narrow it down. And again, because we have the lack of standards on the communication protocols, we have solution maturity questions, finding the funding as a government is really making it harder to progress. We have to think about new business models where the city is becoming more of a consumer or a customer rather than the actual builder of the Internet of Things for cities. One thing that we want to highlight here is that even though you don't achieve a standardization on the communication side, by the means of the platforms that I talked earlier that a lot of companies are investing, so are we, will be able to integrate these various technologies on the communication side, but also on the application side. What is important for cities is that they have a way to extract all the data that comes, connect it, extract it, aggregate it, and then correlate it. And I'll show an example. It's very important that we don't do siloed type of investments, which happens a lot in our organizations, in cities as well, in organizations as well. This is some real stuff that we have done. We have sized what I call the value at stake in 4 cities, and the list is actually longer, but this is the top. So we really, as I said, the business case and the business models are probably the most important part in succeeding in cities in this case. And we have listed the different use cases in those cities. And what is the value at stake, meaning what is the revenue that can those use cases generate? And what is the eventual savings? Mostly energy savings and operational savings are the ones that drive the value. Once you understand that this value is real, once you actually can see those money, you can actually then reinvest and keep on growing, because I think scalability is also going to be a big challenge. Once we start, we see a lot of pilots and a lot of smaller deployments in smart cities, but they're not scaling because you actually have to drive this reinvestment coming through. Now, what I want to do, we have our Innovation and Solution Director here, there in the back, who will help me show you a live demo of this last city, which is Jaipur, and we'll show you how we have deployed those use cases, the traffic, the lighting, the mobility, and the parking. Is it there? There it is. Okay. So, it's not sexy. We are not a sexy company. I wish. But this is the basics. For everything fancy that you see, that's my opinion. It's not that it's our platform, it could be anything. But before you can actually do any analytics, before you can consume the data in a meaningful way to make decisions, you have to be able to connect, you have to be able to aggregate, you have to be able to correlate all these technologies, all those sensors that are coming together in a city space in this case. So in Jaipur, what we have done, you see on the left side, my right side here, left side there, is the street lighting we've connected on 2 of the major highways that are coming into the city. This is only about 300 lights at the moment, right? These are basically, we connect each single light to the internet, and we can control those lights. We can give them different type of policies. It should be on, it should be off when it's necessary to be on and off. Because this is a major thing in cities as well. Street lighting is one of the most important infrastructure, the biggest consumer also in terms of funds. We've also connected about 3,000 parking spots, which now gives us the opportunity to do some analysis, but also parking management, so we understand when parking spaces are occupied, we can guide people to the nearest free space, but we can also see what revenue we are generating or what revenue we are missing. And this is a tremendous opportunity for cities. And when I was talking about business disruption, I actually forgot to mention that the business transformation is so imperative that we see banks, investment banks, buying the entire parking infrastructure in New York City, for example. For them, that's a part of their investment portfolio. By deploying those technologies, they actually gain additional, all the revenues that is lost in parking comes from when you don't issue the fine on time. So people actually staying longer than what they've paid for before you find out that they have not left yet. So in this case, it's just, who would have thought, bank would buy all the parking spots. So that's one of the things. The second thing we've done. The third thing is we're monitoring the environment. The things that IBM and Watson can do with the environment is you have to connect, right? You have to give sensors and to give the data. We measure a lot of things there. What's important is we also want to be able to see why, for example, the CO2 is very high in certain areas. It's because maybe there was more traffic than usual at that day. These are the things you want to be doing as a city, right? So we've logged in, actually, if we were the mayor. I want to switch on and off a couple of lights. It's daytime there, so they won't notice that. Sorry, before you move on, I just wanted to say that what is also deployed in Jaipur is traffic and mobility. They're important. We're using video analytics to actually count vehicles so that we can see what the traffic will look like. And we're also counting people, dwell time, direction of the people, which helps a lot of urban planners how to space or how to design the space. We can just move into the lighting map for a little bit. Bajesh, yeah. We wanted to have a video stream from there to here so that you can see that it's actually, so he selected them and he can choose how much to put them on, 100%, 75%, 50%, right? Now we are doing this manually now, just so that for the purpose of demonstration, but ideally what you want is, as I said, you only have to have those lights on when it's needed, right? So if there is no movement around, and that's where all the other sensors are helping us, right? If there are no people, especially in remote areas, no people passing by, no cars parked or moving by, why would the light be 100% on? Because that's what's happening, right? You have the street lighting is normally on schedules from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., full-blown 100%, right? So that's where those energies, those business cases I was talking about are coming. There's a lot of opportunities in the Philippines for this because you have to move into LED lights is the first step, and the second step is going into the smart lighting. And so I think, thank you, I think that gives a lot of impression about what we can do. I've been short but powerful, as we say in the Netherlands. So I have to say, it's not my favorite image, but it is very, very powerful in what it means, is that, as I said, if you just sit and wait and you don't execute, and it's a very easy way to execute, you can start small and grow. It doesn't have to be big, but you have to do something today. Thank you.